boy, the thoughts that I have. There's this manager in this story, and Wayman and his own boss and a lot of other people that I'd known for 12 years in this company got him so cranked up, so stressed out, in such an awkward position. And having himself built such an incoherent and awkward way of relating to me in his own mind, that one day he came up to me in the store, said hello, used my name, and once this guy just popped, out came in him the most, if you had a passive-aggressive Olympics, he would have taken gold for 3 consecutive years. There was no chance, as I knew before I even entered the store, there was no chance I was going to be able to shop there. I knew there was enough hostility in this store. I already knew it, like on camera, I knew it. Centered on this manager and centered on me, that I basically had seen enough and been shocked enough by something that would never happen if I'd ever or would ever be safe shopping with this company. I already knew that before anything ever happened. You know that? And yet this person denied being hostile. Denied that he had any problems with me at all. And that's what he started doing. And then began to show me, without using the appropriate words, how he was so cranked up, he couldn't talk to me. The only circumstances that he could possibly do with me was to make as public a declaration of how unpalatable he found me as a human being, under the pretext that was provided for him by a lot of female employees at the time, or at least 2 particular ones, who just happened to be the most visibly ugly staff, and had already shown me several bouts of unsolicited aggression and abuse, indicative, in their own words, of basically wanting me to shop there less, or never again. This is called, I kind of like you, but now I don't, because something has taken that away from me. Now you're not my special Mr. Man. This is no different than sexual assault. Somebody fixing upon someone as a sexual object, and women do this all the time, and then taking it out on the object when they're unable, when they're interrupted in their ability to continue with that fantasy. So I was basically mugged, and I almost knew I would be, and I walked in anyway. And so far, it's taken me daily about 2 years. It'll be 3 years my birthday. That's all of it. This is the violence that never gets prosecuted. That guy got as much out of me as if he mounted me and stuck his dick up my ass. That's how much and how deep and how much poison got into my blood from all of this disgusting man's perversions and problems in life. Everything that he is, or was, or never will be, never again, coming out of him and into me. Right? Someone who never did a single aggressive thing to anyone, even when I was being aggressed. To the point that I was having diarrhea. Now, I made enough of a stink, because something more important was won that day. I'd already lost the store. I stopped several orders of women, including women who still work for that business, and the manager, from stalking. And yet his stalking energy has followed. I don't think this guy's a man. I think he's a female. He's a woman, dressed up as a man. He's a Mason. I think there are Masons who don't know they're Masons. And it just so happens that being male in some socialized way can be compatible with raping and awful things. Being female in some socially enforced way can be bad. And being a man who might actually be more of a woman than a man or have a confused gender can be about that. It doesn't mean that gender ambiguities of any kind mean that you're a bad person, because essentially we all have gender ambiguities. We're all born androgynous. Doesn't mean we're born with both sexes. It just means there's a natural fluidity into the kind of person we're going to become, and that has a big part to do with our roots in reproduction. You know, we're born from reproduction, but also our roots in just in total level of pure animal self-determination in whatever the environment you find yourself. Of course, sex is going to respond to the environment as well. You want the best life that you're meant to have, right? But dysphoria itself can also be a sign of industrial poisoning. In a sense, the social idea of what someone thinks is a man may have never been a man, and it might be a sign of industrial poisoning. Maybe that certain types of women or anyone who's in portrayal in any sex might not be even to their own satisfaction, or they may not like it, might not be getting men, right? There's a woman who sexually assaulted me on the boardwalk, and she lives in the building. She's the partner of the manager. And yesterday I came home, and for the first time she was talking to my mom, and we were together. She actually made a little bit of eye contact with me, so she could see I'm not angry at her. Low and slow. I had other things on my mind, right? But you understand that they're really weird to me, and then they get really nervous around me. Right? So that becomes my problem. Okay. So it's probably about 9 or 10 a.m. So yeah, I mean, it's not something. One day I'll tell him, yeah, almost 3 years. That's what that level of abuse takes. That's what that person was relieving them. They probably felt great. They probably felt really great after it happened. Because they basically, like, you know, sex relieves you of stress. This relieved all of their stress. All of their stress could only be relieved based on how they've been cranked up in the cult-like capacity of this by becoming extremely violent to me in a way of maximum humiliation and hostility under the most legitimate seeming pretext. I'm sure that I never ever came through those doors again. That I was the last person they ever wanted to invite into their store, the last customer who should ever feel safe buying anything from them ever again. That's what he communicated without using all of those words. Imagine standing and buying first thing of the day, standing there, and that's what you get from who's just said, oh, there's no hostility in this store. After you say, I'm sensing hostile towards me in the store, right? Totally dishonest from beginning to end. Keeps his job. Even with the threat of a $25 million for sexual harassment, keeps his job. I go on with life. It takes a while for the shock to process. Listen, that eagle. But the sun is coming up for me. There's positive hope. My mom has no idea. This man's evil energy has followed me in my ethereal field for 3 years. And I just thought, why isn't this over yet? Well, because they're afraid of me. They didn't get the complete satisfaction they wanted. I mean, you go that far to get satisfied in that way, get what you want. Well, he's never been able to let down his guard. Completed his mission. It's like an assassin who thinks they've killed someone when they're still alive. And so when someone does something violent to you, it's like, what's in your ethereal field? Is it guilt? No, it's fear. They don't know what you're going to do to them. They haven't got the satisfaction and safety that they wanted. At least with respect to you. I want to leave my predators feeling out of balance. I don't want them to think that they could ever do that again to me or anyone. And like I said, the value of confront, who was clearly really most of an epicenter of the entire problem, was to deal with a female who didn't work there, who was also another epicenter. So it was kind of like stereo, right? Who is not really a female, by the way, and who was stalking me for about 10 years. So that stopped her. By leaving the store, which I could do, stopped her from stalking me anymore. Got one immediately, another 2 females fired, and one who just lingered there, who was a critical part of the violence, whom I believe pretty much just had a few months to go, maybe 6 months to go and find some other thing, because probably very few of the employees at that point thought much of her, because she basically had out and out lied and just cranked up the manager and people around her to think that I was an awful, awful human being who had never done anything because of her own mental problems. And she gave up this other woman who was a single mother. What a wonderful human being who got fired even though she really didn't do anything. So she got me out of there. She cranked up the manager. Could have got him fired. She got another person fired. She got another person fired. And all because she presents as a fairly ugly, scared, sick little shrew of a woman who would never hurt anyone, who is actually the most similar in that respect to the female at one of the epicenters who was stalking me. Same skin complexion, similar body type, extremely fat ass end, extremely small breasts, very tight lips, has never really had a loving relationship, not unlike myself in her entire life, probably. And probably drinks too much wine and probably hangs out with the wrong people. But is also, unfortunately, living her life of agony has become a pathological liar. Doesn't certain social boundaries, is prone to becoming extremely violent to men, especially men that she shows an affinity toward, like a sexual predator, right? None of them have any idea what they're doing. It's just amazing. It doesn't help the argument to use this against women, but it's just amazing that this woman could lie so much for so long and create so many problems and keep her job. And go through a complete portrayal of someone as though she's being stalked while she's stalking me. A perfect example of the victim aggressor, which, if you will, is a perfect female role. It's a very poor strategy for life, but you can appreciate where it might come from. Essentially, it's a form of alcoholism, right? Which is, you're not okay, but really, I'm not okay. And if she just went and said, I'm not okay, I just don't feel good about this, and this is why. Okay, I've had some food, had some more marijuana. Water. Water, drink some water. I haven't had much water today. and then we all continue on our way. I'll probably go to the Englishman River. That'll be fun. I gotta force myself to drink water. No matter what I drink, cold spring water is the best all times of year. Really cleans you out. Perfect combination. Like if you think protein and fat is important, and it's important to the athletic strains I put myself through, just as important like with spring water. It helps the entire process. Okay. If not right after a meal of protein, within 45 minutes, 20 to 45 minutes, you can make it up yourself there, but it's always been useful. Again, or I should say, as in other times, a female sociopath who gave me that advice. It was like, oh, you sometimes find at least one thing. I mean, their identity is usually as someone who knows things. And so they're the kind of person who will just say, hey, do this and do that, to someone that doesn't necessarily need that advice. There's no, when someone has an alcoholic complex, they essentially have no modesty, I once said to this French, basically she was a barista, but she made herself out to be other things. She would let people believe that she baked the bread that they sold when it came from another bakery. It came from a bakery. And I came in one day and I made the mistake. I'm an English speaker. She was born in Quebec. I speak French, so she's French Canadian. And I said, I don't suppose you have any loaves of bread left, because it came from off island and it was good and people liked it. And it's good, and I like their olive loaf. And she said, that's not the right way to talk. That's a negative way of saying something. I didn't begin to correct her. I don't suppose means I don't want to assume. If you don't have one, that's okay. I don't suppose, or is it possible? It's okay if it's not. I was basically as polite and passive a way of talking. It's very mannerly. And all she heard was, I don't suppose. I wasn't telling her to do or not do anything. It wasn't an admonition. It says, I don't assume, I don't suppose, automatically, given the popularity of your bread, that you have any loaves of bread left, right? Which I don't think she did, or she did, I don't know. And maybe she was just pissed that she didn't have any bread left, I don't know. And she was like, that's not the right way to speak. That's speaking in a negative way. She's a spiritual person. Spiritual people are always aggressive people. They start off aggressive, they become more aggressive. It's just a terrain like outer space where they can fuck with you. They just they'll always paralyze you. It's just paralyzing. It's like, that's negative. Okay, what am I going to do? Contradict her? Say, no, it's positive? Well, I guess it wasn't to her. And if she's already this aggressive, it's not going to be positive to tell her she's wrong. Like, no, that's not really what it means in English. I was actually being really polite, right? And if you can't tell even the energy, because sociopaths can't read body language. The thing that's all about surfaces, fashion, right? Words are there to be turned and manipulated, not for artistic purpose, but for control and power. Right? And of course, they often are, so that's more compatible with the financial system. It's not compatible to be able to read children's, oh look, there's an underneath there. Children, I'll come back here tomorrow and take a look at that. Children's or people's body language, because it's quite honest. Right? My body language would have said, I'm here, I like coming here, that's why I shop here. What a wonderful thing for you to have bread, possibly, for sale. Do you have some? I was being I had no aggression, no reason to be aggressive, no reason to play some sort of word magic to get under her skin. When I said I don't suppose, I'm just using maybe a little bit of flair that can come with the English language, and as it indicates a kind of, or supposed to be, a virtuous way of asking someone a question. But she was offended by it. You imagine what she'd said if I said, well, you know what, it's actually not. It uses a negative contraction, if you will, but it's only because I'm saying I would certainly, out of respect for you, restrain myself from just saying, hey, I want some bread, and by the way, if you don't have some, that definitely falls short of my expectations. It's the opposite of being rude, right? Customers are notoriously selfish. I love your store. I don't want to be like a typical customer. As a selfish customer, I want to show a little bit of modesty and unselfishness. Really, I don't mean to be a bother, but do you have any bread? And if not, that's totally okay. And she couldn't respond to me without being aggressive and trying to control my speech. Think about what that means. Think about that person's mind, right? I came in one day, my husband told me, I work in the fashion industry and I don't know what you're trying to do here. I'm not kidding. There's probably a few gay men out there going, really? Scandalous. And it was scandalous. It was humiliating. I took it. You know, because it is all about the surfaces for them. It's not about, hey, good to see you. That's not what he said. He said, oh, what's this? What are you wearing? I've been in the fashion industry, so I know what people wear and what looks good. Essentially, that doesn't. Right? I was in there to buy a coffee or something. It's a small island. And the guy wasn't angry at me anymore. This is just the way they were. They sit there dumbly. And I guess they wait for a response. They're probably quite right in expecting that it's going to be those people they do this to are not going to be people who are inclined to complain too much. And they just do it to people like you. People they can do it to. People who look vulnerable in some way. It irks them. Because for a sociopathic predator, male and female, it's all about control. It's not about being too vulnerable. It's about being the right person. They're really good at being citizens. They're really popular. They're good at everything because most things you will do better at if you're a sociopath who's in fashion, uses the right lingo, knows how to deal and be able to talk to people, but keep a certain kind of persuasive influence of the people you control, right? It's all the game, right? Life turns into a racket, essentially. And it's fine if you're compatible with that. But they see the people who aren't, and those people stand out as people that they can do little tricks on, right? I mean, wow, this is a perfect example of someone who needs a little fashion, sort of hitman, ambush, right? I don't think I came into their store very much more after that. They were notoriously known as people who didn't really care how many people they offended. So most people who were local didn't shop there anymore. They didn't care. They had staked their own little country. They don't need the money. And so, sort of expanding a kind of territory that even though they're trying to be very quiche, or very modern, organic and everything, that underneath the surface, they might as well have been two of the ugliest people you've ever met. It didn't matter how many clothing or how many fine haircuts, weird or spiritual speech they engaged in. They're quite frankly very mean, poor, ugly people. Fundamentally, I mean, that ugly really applies. And it's not that you want to be mean and say like you want to hurt these people's spirits. It's like, well, people can be ugly. They can be cruel. They can be mean. Right? And at best, it leads us to wonder about what's fashion. If it's really all about making people feel bad. Right? Dad used to get into like, if you don't dress this way, you'll feel bad. You'll see people say like, when a man wears a suit, he's a completely different person. Why? Because you're wearing a costume. A costume, definitely a popular, expensive costume, right? Makes you feel if you kind of die. You release your neuroses. It takes away some of the pressure on your press, right? But because doing this sort of identity switch with the costume on stage releases your inhibitions. And your inhibitions will need releasing because the world is very stressful for your inhibitions because as a human being, we're naturally inhibited about pretty much everything about the world. So as people get older, they have to put on costume. It just so happens to do your job. You have to be a certain kind of person. And that makes the job more useful to you because you can lose your inhibitions. It can make you more confident. You get up, you put on your tie for work, you put on your costume, and you're a new man. You can kiss your crying little girl goodbye. Daddy's got to go to work, even though she doesn't understand. Because Daddy's uninhibited now. Daddy fully loves you, but Daddy has to leave you, and you can scream all you want. And you can see videos of that on YouTube, right? And it's important. You're watching something that's part of cultural anthropology. That working people put on costumes and leave their children. They get costumes for their children, and they take them to schools, and they leave them there, right? And the children who get on best, right, at acting and being popular, usually have the best clothes, and the sexiest clothes, or the coolest clothes, and they've got all the coolest toys, and they listen to the coolest music, and they ride a skateboard, or they're into snowboarding, or they do all the cool things, right? And they're on the cheerleading team, and they want to run for class president. They're the funny person and fun one in class, or they're the all-round awesome student who's the captain of the football team. They're standout people in a system that really is totally against human nature, because they've put on layers of person itself, like a costume. If you're in a strange religion, you'd have to do the same thing. Put on garb, which you'll notice is the first few letters of garbage, because garb is the torture of garb. Your garb tortures you. You wear it based on torture, right? Not just because it's a sort of thing that women had to wear or something painful. It's because it's all painful. All fashion is based on pain. Fascism is based on pain. Sartorial involves torture. Tutorial. Territorial. The torture of fear. Terra, Ra, right? Cover up the sun, cover up the bull, and torture them, because it belongs to Rhea, the mother of the gods. The myth, and the myths that hold a financial and psychological dominion over human beings by inducing the orphaning of our children by money, matrimony, birth, and everything else in between. Okay. This is cold. So, isn't that something? I had to run to the lake there. Right. All about torture, acting, the theater, the stage. Age is always torture, wage is death. Right? Wage, language. The wages are measures of death, units of negative financial instruments, or monai. The Mona Lisa means money. That's what it means. Egypt is chema, of alchemy, which is the divine science, which is used to conquer you, to subdue your heart, to get people in a cult. Leaders in a cult will learn to subdue people with their hearts, and from within their hearts, they will subdue you. Black magicians do that. You know that? Black magicians can subdue you from within their heart. And the gunslinger, Stephen King says, the gunslinger shoots with his heart. He kills people from in his heart. Right? In the Bible it says, we will say in our heart, we will subdue them. It comes out of the heart. Right? I've been in cults, or things I didn't know were cults, and the disciple or the leader, they are often proud of the fact that they speak with their heart. They can really influence people from the heart level. They can hurt them, or if people are hurt, they will subdue them from the heart. It has like a sedative effect. Don't worry, I love you. It's your fault. Daddy knows best. Don't worry. I protected you even though I almost you, and it was just a projection of down deep you're a psychopath. Follow me and you'll be okay. Because that's what everybody is, unless they have love from the guru. And this is a heart racket. So cults are love rackets. If we talked more about them, we'd all be a little more skeptical about religion and spirituality and culture, because it's all love rackets. Right? It's there to speak to you from the heart and to subdue you from the heart. I love you. Everything's fine. What's wrong? Am I crushing your larynx? Oh, I'm not letting you speak. I've made bad assumptions. I've become a kind of android of the world, telling you what the banks think you need to hear to force you into a difficult enough position in life at a development level that the choices you make are going to be based on a level of coercion that no group you join will ever be able to solve. And so violence will become inevitable to any number of people, among you, and everyone will just calm everyone down with love from the heart, because that's what really subdues us. Stuff from the heart that gets us right. Oh, it's okay, honey. I love you. Stop bleeding. We'll get you a rape kit. It'll be okay. God loves you. Sometimes we just have to have a little discomfort, and then everything's better again. Besides, you're a sinner. It's really just your own evil coming back to you. Don't you understand how loving that is? Or does that scare you? Right? The world fucking loves you to death. Most of the people who hurt people love those people, or say they did. They hurt their children out of love. Right? They fight for their country out of love. For those who have said in their hearts, we will subdue you. One of the most critical demonic things I ever learned, really learned from experience, is just random everyday Qigong leaders or cult leaders, Chinese medicine people who heart to pacify people. They do it on instinct. They do it from it doesn't matter what they do and what they don't do. It's all from the heart. And that's what matters, right? Okay? I know you meant well from your heart. Right? That's what they'll say to you. But it always comes from the heart, at the heart level. They hate the ones they love. Right? Love a kid. Right? There's a prostitute lived down the hall who sexually abused my mom. But she'd be like, love you, honey. Right? I'm sure it's all about love for her. No doubt. Love, love, love. She gets you right from the heart. Right from the heart. Right? Diseases of the heart come from people who can disease people from out of their hearts. Straight from the heart. Strange people down there. I have to let you walk a little bit. This is good out here. There's just a small fat woman looking at me, making a little too much eye contact. And that's the weird thing about some of these people. You're just like, oh God. Who does that? Especially if you're single and you're by yourself. Right? She's flanked by a man and a woman, right? And she's just looking. You just see these black orbs in the distance. Looking, taking me in, Right, I had a woman yesterday, basically saucer-eyed with taking me all in. She stopped and she was already taking